Welcome to 99 Ways to Win, where every day we are inspiring, informing, and empowering women, Christians, and entrepreneurs. Today, I have a special guest and friend, Miss Monica Simpson. Monica Simpson is a licensed professional counselor, supervisor, and the owner of New Pathways Counseling, PLLC. She and her clinicians help people to define what peace and balance is for them and then work towards achieving that peace and balance in their lives. Monica especially enjoys working with women who are experiencing life transitions. Monica has been a member of the Church of Christ all her life, and as a board trustee for Christian Works for Children, she was instrumental in making Christian counseling available to church members through the Christian Works sponsorship program. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat. This is Miss Monica Simpson. How are you doing today, lady?
I am fine. Good morning, Michelle.
Good
Thank you for
morning.
having me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for taking time because I know you are a busy lady, as we're going to discuss. So I read the bio, but just tell everybody listening a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, as I said, started my business. What? Look, you think that's an easy question, but my journey has not been a straight line. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yay.
Um,
Those are the interesting journeys. Come on, let's go.
it was, it actually kind of like, I feel like it's this meandering kind of journey. Like, let's try this, let's try that. Nope, 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 let's go. Um, and so I've actually, so looking back, right now, I can say I enjoyed the ride, and there was a purpose for it. I
Mm,
don't think I was meant to be like, okay, this is where you're doing, and here's the straight line or relatively straight line to get there. And so, just even starting with my education, I actually went to school or graduated when I finally graduated because it took me a long time, because I liked school. And so, I was always taking these classes that didn't necessarily lead me straight to my degree.
mm.
Um, so, again, that whole meandering thing. And so, I graduated with an undergraduate in accounting and did accounting for 10 plus years, I believe, a long time. Um,
Wow.
and so I liked it, but I just didn't love it. And I always knew that this is not where I was going to end up. Didn't know where I end up, but that was not going to be it. And then eventually went back to school, got my license, got my master's in professional counseling, started down that path. And at the same time, I was, still doing my full time accounting work. Um, and I was single mom of two beautiful daughters.
Wow. So
So,
you went back to school to get the master's while working full time and raising two girls by yourself.
yes, yes.
How did you do that?
But for the grace of God,
Amen.
and it's so funny when I can look back now, and there are so many times in my life where I'm like, how did that happen? How did that come about? And I'm like, but God,
Won't
truly,
he do
because
it?
won't He do it? Because I couldn't see anything but the next step in front of me.
Wow.
What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And did not, honestly, at the time, did not realize what I was doing. It was just like, okay, this is the next thing, and this is the next thing. And it was, again, it wasn't until afterwards I look back and I'm like, what? How? Okay, thank you, Lord. You know?
He will open those doors, and I feel like it's a teamwork thing, he puts things inside of us, and then
Mhm.
if we act on them, then he opens those doors, and if we're seeking him, we're trying to please him, we're being sensitive to the Holy Spirit, then we can say, oh well, maybe this isn't okay, well maybe I should do this, okay, maybe I should wait. We know because he's guiding us. But if we just sit there and it's like, if you, like you said, you like the accounting but you didn't love it,
Mhm.
and a lot of people, they were just like, hey, I'm making decent money, This is a secure job. They're always going to need accounting. Why would I try to do something else? You don't have to love your job. That's not necessary. You're just supposed to be able to provide. So don't worry about it. If you had done that, you could have done that and that would have been okay.
Yeah.
But God put something else in you and you responded to that, and he opened the doors and made a way for you to do it.
Yes, he did. And one of my favorite stories, this is like, to me, this was this watershed moment when I got the big picture, because it was difficult. It was. And so, just looking at the next step. But I got to this point in my master's program where you're supposed to do all of these counseling hours. And
Yes.
I'm like, how am I supposed to get these counseling hours? And it was a lot in a semester, during a semester. I think you're supposed to get like 200 a semester or something like that.
Whoa.
But I'm working full time and I have two young daughters. How am I supposed to pick up these extra 200 hours in a semester?
Which a semester
And
is, it's been a while since I've been in school. What is that, baby? 4 months?
months? Yeah,
Okay.
about 4 months. Yeah, and if you don't, then you have to pay for another semester.
Oh, goodness. Okay. I did not know it was that deep. Okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't just like the time, it was the money.
Right.
Also,
So what did you do?
So I'm panicking. I'm like, I'm doing what I can on the weekends. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to get these hours, but I need to get these hours so I can graduate because it was like my last semester.
Okay.
And if I didn't, I was going to have to, add another semester. So I'm kind of panicking, but I'm doing what I'm doing. And I go to work and I get called into the office. Actually, several people. There was a lot going on in the company at the time. And they sit me down and they said, Monica, we're downsizing and we're going to have to let you go. But we are going to pay you for the next 6 months and we're going to provide your insurance for the next like 9 months. I have to sit there and not start laughing. Because if I tell you that was not God, I'm like, so I wanted to smile like, yeah.
Right. You're like, thank you, yes. But you can't be like.
I had to be serious, like, oh, okay, I understand. And inside I'm like, yay.
Oh my gosh, that was poker face time right there. Because everybody else is like, oh my gosh.
Right. I'm like, and on my way, I remember, and they wanted you to leave, pack up right then.
Right
Everybody's sad, because I understand. And I'm just like, on my way home, I'm calling an agency, picking up additional hours, counseling hours. And that next Monday, I was in there counseling and getting those hours. And I got my hours in that semester.
Thank you, Lord. Wow.
Right.
That's amazing. Amazing.
I'm like, see, that was like,
That's God.
It is. And I knew I was on the path that he had chosen for me because he's laying these things out for me. What I thought was a wall actually was a door that he opened up.
Wow. And just think, and going back to what I was saying as far as, acting on things and moving forward. If you, hadn't been pursuing that counseling degree, if you hadn't been working towards that next phase, then that news would have hit a lot differently.
Yes.
Now they were very generous, and that's a blessing. Like, you're getting paid for 6 months, you getting your insurance for 9 months. So like you have the runway, but you're like all of a sudden, okay, I got to try to figure out what am I, but you were already there. So it was just like a smooth transition because you were doing what God called you to do. I truly believe.
Right.
Yes. Because you're not my counselor, but we've talked. And Monica and I do it in the same congregation. And at our ladies retreat, this was the shirt for our ladies retreat. Shout out to Lisa Cox, you know who you are. Monica did a workshop, and I can't remember. What was the name of it? I remember it had to do with your parents, how your parenting affected your. What do you? It's been a while. I don't know. You
I
might
know.
not know.
I was like, really?
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, it's okay. But Monica did a workshop about just how the parenting styles and the type of parenting that you received as a child affect your mindset and how you think about things and how you relate to people. And everybody was pairing. We were in a room, and everybody had to pair up. And as fate or God would have it, there weren't enough people, so I didn't have a partner. So Monica was my partner, and she did a great job, and I learned a little bit about her. But just seeing how you explain that material, and how you walked us through that, and how transformational and impactful it was for all the women in there. I mean, you had women of all ages. And I remember one lady, it was like one of our seasoned saints, was just sharing some things, and it was like, wow. So I'm like, if you do that in a group setting, and then we've had conversations and stuff, so I know how caring and sweet and insightful you are. If you're doing that in a group setting, then I can just only imagine how you're blessing your clients. So I'm so glad that you did listen to God and pursue that. But I digress. It was related. I needed to be said though. But okay, so you get the go ahead, you get your hours, then what?
Um, then after my 8 months, I got to get a job. I don't have no money coming in. And so I returned, but by this time I've graduated. I've taken my test because you have to sit for a state test.
Okay.
And so now it's this, look, I need more hours because they want you to be fully, trained. But this is a lot more hours. This is 3,000 hours.
Now, okay, the 3,000 hours, what do you need that to get that for?
To get your state license.
Okay. So you have to take the test. Now, are you able to work towards those hours before you pass the test, or do you have to pass the test first?
Got to pass the test first.
So you pass the test, and then it's like, okay, you need 3,000 hours now, and then you're like, for real.
For real.
But you do get paid for the hours, right? You do not.
Only if you're working for an agency or a company or someplace like that. Well, I could have gone that route, and honestly though, I'm used to a salary of an accountant. And I still have 2 girls, and I'm still a single parent. And I just cannot in my mind make it make sense to take such a drop. I just couldn't. So I went back to accounting full time and getting my hours on weekends, evenings, whenever and wherever I could.
Wow.
It was that when I talk about that meandering, you can, so according to the state rules, you can get those 3 hours no less than 18 months. So there are some people who can get all those hours in 18 months. So you have between 18 months and 5 years. Guess where I fell?
Well, we've talked about, yeah.
I was like right up to the 5 years.
Wow, 5 years. It took you 5 years to get those 3,000 hours because you needed to make sure that you were still providing for your family and yourself.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Now, okay, if you're on time with everything, just a bachelor's degree is 4 years, and then you get your master's. That's 5 years. So at this point, you've already gone to school for how long?
Longer than that, because again, I'm taking this meandering road.
Yeah, so you've gone to school all this time, and now you're working full time. Tell me about a time, if there was one, when you just thought, I can't do this.
I remember having days like that. Because sometimes, it was a lot, work, the type of accounting I did, it was like this every month we had deadlines. I
Mm.
did what we call month-end close. So there's a week
Oh,
out of the month, every month, where things were like crazy. And then 4 times a year when it was crazier because we're closing the quarter. So this is like this repetitive schedule that I have been doing. And so there were days when I was just exhausted. There were days when I know I did not show up as the best version of me. And if I'm really transparent, there were many days, unfortunately, that I did not show up as the best mom. Um, and I don't, but I never had this thought of let me stop doing what I'm doing. It was always next step. What's the next step? What's the next step? Though I don't, once I put my mind to let's go back to school,
mm-hmm.
because I enjoy going to school and I really love learning. Um, Even though I was exhausted, it was never let me stop. It was maybe let me take a pause.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, your master's program generally is 2 years. I did the 3 year route because I like to take my time.
You just take longer with everything. No wonder we click so well, because I promise you,
I'm like, what's the rush? I'm definitely one of those people of let's enjoy the journey, not the the
mm,
destination is not as important as the journey. So
right.
if it's longer, so I can't so back to your question. I can't really think of a time, but I just know I had days.
Okay.
Um,
And okay, so let's talk about, because one of the focuses of 99 Ways to Win is women and things that we deal with as women. So the days that you didn't show up as the best mom,
mm,
what do you mean by that? What did you tell yourself or feel in the moment? And then how did you reconcile it, or deal with it after the fact?
mm. So there were, I guess, a few times when I'm like, that's not what I should be doing, or I didn't respond the way that I wanted. And I felt really bad. I felt horrible, not even bad, horrible. Um, I tried, but what I tried to do in my mind at the time is, excuse me, provide when I was there or present with my girls to try to make that like the best thing that I could. So I was intentional about exposing them to different things because I thought I think and I thought that was so important as far as rounding them out as a person.
Mm,
So we went to museums, we went to the zoo, we took you know when we traveled, we stopped. We would travel and visit my parents. We would stop and see things. And I tried to provide, I was able to travel overseas with my older daughter.
oh wow.
Um, and, just kind of open this up and to provide these experiences for them. And in my mind, I hoped and prayed that that would kind of balance out when I was not the best when it was just too much.
Mm.
And I think they pointed out my shortcomings. My girls feel like, no, mom, you didn't do this, remember you did that. I'm like, oh, okay.
Now, was this after they got older?
That was as they got older. Because and at the time it was just I just had to do the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do, and sometimes it ain't. It's hard. It's hard. So
It is
now,
hard.
along those lines of going with that, like you said, there were days when you didn't show up as the best mom, but
Mm-hmm.
on the average, like what in addition to the exposure, what were you doing just to be a mom? What was important to you as a parent, raising them as they were young girls, and then they got to be middle school, in high school? Like what things did you do? How did you relate to your children to make sure that they had, you all had a relationship that you really could be proud of?
I think one of the biggest things that I tried to do was try to provide an environment where they could talk to me, um, and try to, to the best of my ability, and to encourage them to, try different things and to be exposed. And, you know, some of those life lessons that maybe I felt like I had missed, and I tried to fill in the best that I could. And again, but in retrospect, at that time, not realizing my own areas of woundedness from my
Mm.
own childhood.
Oh, come on now. Come
So
on now.
yeah, you know, and honestly, that's kind of like why I love therapy, is because I took those classes to therapize myself first and foremost, and then other people.
That actually reminds me of something that I wanted to ask you. So, who do counselors go to get counseled? Do you get counseling? Do you get coaching? Do you how does that work?
We have our own therapist. And I truly believe if we want to be effective therapists, we need a therapist.
Mm.
And so I have a therapist.
Because you have your whole day is listening to, and you're not supposed to internalize or take them on, but you're in there with these people with their challenges, with their sadness, their anger, their insecurities, and you care about them. Because if you did, hopefully there's probably maybe somebody, but if you're in that field, it's because you care about people and you want to help them. And so it's like that's a lot. And I have a friend that trained as a massage therapist, and she talked about how we have to. I think she said once a week or something. They have to get at least an hour massage or something like that. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. And she said, yeah, because your muscles will get tense and everything because you're constantly working on people. But that's hard work. So we have to get our muscles loosened up. They make us. She worked at a chain, and she was like,
Right.
they require you to. And I was like, man, I didn't think about that.
Yes.
Because you as a person, you need whatever you're giving out. You need that same thing most of the time.
Exactly. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So your daughters, we were talking off camera about this. Your daughters are not little girls anymore.
No, they're not.
So how old are your daughters, and what would you say your relationship is with them now? How is it?
Look, because I like to meander. Look, as I'm talking, I'm like, this is really a big theme in my life.
With new pathways. No wonder your practice is new pathways.
New pathways. Yes. See, on all these other levels, these things are speaking to me. So the big thing about my daughters, I have two, as you know, they're 10 years apart, and that is a generation.
It is.
It
As
is.
far as it's right at that thing where they have some things in common, but then there's some stuff that's like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
Wow.
Yes. So I have my youngest is 20, and so of course that means my oldest is 30. Yeah. Look, yeah. I'm still a little bit in shock.
That's funny. Okay, so how did that happen? Why is there such a big gap?
Let's see. So, life choices, things. I had my oldest daughter when I was in college, and was able, thanks to my parents, their involvement and stepping in and helping out, I was still able to, graduate, go to college, have some really good college experiences, and be, honestly, we're going to be transparent today, and be a
Please.
part-time mom. Because my parents really stepped in for the first 3, 4 years uh,
Wow.
of my daughter's life. And so the good thing is they now have this amazing relationship.
With their grandparents
Hmm.
that you don't
Yes,
always get when, yeah, when they're just doing a
yes,
visit here and there. So they
right.
got to pour into them,
Yes.
especially
I
your
mean,
oldest, huh?
right. Yes. And so I mean, I was just talking to my mom and how my dad just spoils my oldest. Like, your dad just bought Allie, da 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 da. I'm like, really? She's 30. No,
That's his baby.
right.
That's his baby.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that is
Um,
funny. Well,
and yeah,
yeah.
and so then so then life goes on, and then I get married down the road, and then we have my youngest, and
All
so
right.
and he is
There you go. Okay,
yeah,
so like I said, we're gonna be transparent, right? So, all right, so you have a kid. 10 years later, you get married, have another kid. So, and then the marriage doesn't work out.
right. Yes.
So, how old were your kids at that time? And then what was that like going through divorce? And then now, okay, now I'm a single mom again.
Ah, yeah. So we separated when my youngest was 2 years old,
Okay.
and we stayed separated for a year before we finalized or even started divorce proceedings. So at that time, so I had a 2 year old and a 12-year old. Hmm.
The
Yeah.
12-year-old is old enough to kind of help with the 2-year-old, so that's kind of cool. She's like,
You
theoretically,
want my version of that or her version of that?
I want both. So what is her version? What is her version first?
Her version is I always had to take care of my sister. My version is I still feel like I carry most of that burden. So I don't know. But everybody's
And kids,
perspective.
right? Because as a mom, you assign a task or whatever, and you have something that, like, okay, well, you can do this. And then the
Hmm.
kid is like, oh my gosh, I always have to. And
Right.
your little day, at your little day, you ain't got nothing to worry about, okay? Except I feed you, I put clothes on you, you ain't paying no rent, you ain't got to worry about nothing. I don't. It,
You
from
said
our
it right
perspective,
there.
but when we were that age, we felt the same way, right? It's like, oh, I got to
Right.
do this and I got to do this and and okay, I'm gonna digress again, but this is one thing that and it helped me though, and it helped me in my relationship with my kids. And I'm not perfect at all in this, but I did realize I had to realize like, and I don't know about you, but with my parents, it's kind of that old school thing of like, for real, like you ain't gotta, whatever, your little problems or whatever. But it's like for them, that is their reality, that is their world. That's where they are. So yeah, for them, school actually can be stressful. And
Hmm.
my kids have called me out on that, or let me know, like, well, I got this test, and and I'm actually, this is stress, like just like we get stressed about work, or we're concerned
Hmm.
about this or that, or our friend did this or whatever. That's for them too. So when they have their school, and then they have some chores, and then they get fussed at, and they would like to go do this or relax, but they can't, is like, that's real to them. They have to figure out how to work that out. It doesn't mean that you don't give them stuff to do, but I did learn to be, I guess, more cognizant of the fact that it's not just like, oh, they're just carefree and, you know, whatever, just minimizing their experience, I guess you would say. And
Yes.
so learning how I approach that with some respect. Um,
Right.
so I'm going to ask you something. We got about 10 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to ask you something that I've wondered about. I know I read on your website that you're a, well, how do you say it? So like you're a licensed or certified marriage counselor or something like. Am I getting this wrong?
So I'm certified with I have a couple of certifications.
Okay.
So in dealing with couple and working with couples, the first one is that I'm certified to teach the Prepare Enrich curriculum And that's a premarital curriculum for couples who are obviously planning on getting married. And so I've had the training for that. And then I'm also certified to teach the 7 principles for making marriage work. And that is by the Gottman Institute. And that is a, excuse me, information or training on for couples on who want to, make improvements in their relationships.
Okay. So my question is, I can see somebody saying, well, you're not married. So how are you going to counsel a couple, or well, you got divorced? So how would you know how to like help me have a better relationship? That kind of, I would say old schooler. And in some way I can understand it, but in another way I'm like, so like, what is your answer? What is your answer to that?
I think so I definitely, excuse me just a second, understand people's concerns. But we don't have to experience everything to know some things. If we have our own personal experience, we bring a different level to what we know or what we have learned or education. But that's how we learn. That's how we are taught. I'm not expected to know. We're not expected to experience everything to be able to teach it. And so I have, when it comes to couples, I have received some extensive training. I work with couples using the what is called the Gottman method. They have these training program. There's actually 3 steps, and then you can actually become, I believe it's called like a certified Gottman therapist or something. I can't remember the exact title, but I've gone through the first 2 trainings of that.
Okay.
I've gone through their training with the 7 principles for making marriage work. I've gone through their training for working with couples who are experiencing infidelity in their relationships. Of course, the Prepare and Enrich, working with couples. So I have this training, and I continue to, increase my knowledge. But then on a personal level, I'm at my age, and we talked about that. You experience some things. Yes, I've been married. Yes, I've seen, successful relationships. I've seen unsuccessful relationships. And so I can bring all of that in and to work with people, couples, individuals, and help them to understand their problem. Because it's not my job to fix anybody. It's my job, I say it to share whatever knowledge I may have and help them to implement it in a way that makes sense in their life.
And actually that leads me to another question, which you may have already kind of answered it, but how do I say this? What is it that you want your practice and your calling as a counselor and also a leader of other counselors to be? What is the impact that you want in the world? What are you trying to bring to people?
That's a good question. That is a very good question. So the simple answer is I want to help people be the best version of them. And it's simple because it's like, well, of course, we all want to be the best version. But sometimes we don't know what the best version of us is.
Oh, come on now.
So I look at my own personal experience. So when I was saying how I did not show up the way that I wanted to, I wasn't seeing a therapist during that time. And so in my mind, I was being the best version that I knew to be. Had I had some guidance, had I had some space to let's look at this. Is this really the best version? Or are there things that you might want to do differently? Then I could have made, some strategic choices or some strategic changes in what or how I was doing what I was doing. And
Wow.
that's what I see my role as. It's like, yeah, you may be doing the best that you think you can, but is it? Do you, what is it? I like the saying, we don't know what we don't know.
This is so true. Okay. Wow. No, I love that because um I mean, I have to say I've seen God has just worked it out over the course of my life, where I've had those interventions and access to resources as far as counseling to help me. Um, and then in my case, actually, I'm technically still married, been separated for over 10 years. Uh, but I went through a lot with my kids' dad and him, going into being incarcerated and like trying to deal with all of that, and the congregation where I was at the time in my hometown of Memphis, they had a counseling ministry. So they had licensed counselors that were available in the evenings. You could have like, so many sessions, that they were for free. And so I took advantage of that. And I remember, I never had anything like that, didn't know anything about how it worked. But, here was this Black woman sitting here across from the desk, asking me these questions. And I remember once, I don't know if it was the first session or not, but like she asked me something and I just wrote a bunch of stuff down and then handed her the paper because I didn't like I did. I was like, I didn't know how to say it, or I was scared to say it, or I don't know, maybe it was a combination of the two. And so she read it, and then she was like, gently but firmly. And I'm like, okay, so tell me tell me about this. She got me to talk, and she asked me these questions, and it helped me get outside of my own head because my head it was scary in there, and it was confusion, and the stories that I was telling myself, and oh gosh, and it freed me and it empowered me, because like I said, it was only so many sessions that you could have, for free. But by that point, um, I had some tools so that when I felt confused or scared or angry or something came up, it was like I found myself asking myself certain questions and looking at issues and problems a certain way because I saw how she did it and how it helped me work through things. And so then fast forward, so I relocated to Texas. One of my sisters and her husband, offered to let me stay with them and just get a new start because, after, husband's incarcerated, can't, lose the house, and like, wow, what am I going to do now? My kids are like 3 and 4, something like that. So I got these toddlers.
Right.
And my mother, was trying to help me, but she had a stroke. So now she's not working. She's getting disability. So they were like, okay, you can relocate. Um, and just seeking out just different resources and parenting classes and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, I don't have to do this way. Or, I do this because of this. And, this is the same thing my mom did, but that I don't like, but I'm doing it too.
Mm-hmm.
But this is how I can change it. So yeah, so like the version and the person the parent that I am, and my kids we talk about it sometimes. I'm like, yeah, I used to do such and such, and I know y'all kind of remember that, huh? And they were like, yeah.
Yeah.
So they didn't see the progression, but it is all about getting those tools and resources, somebody that can help you look at things objectively and say, hey, okay, well, how about this? And look at this. And it's like, okay, all right, yeah, I like that. Let's try that.
Right.
Yes. And somebody to check in with. So I tell people all the time, especially, I'm talking to one of my Caucasian colleagues or friends. I'm like, in our community, I feel like in the Black community, there's a stigma and a lack of education when it comes to getting counseling, seeking help from a professional. And I think it is really too bad, especially when you look at all of the things that we traditionally have to deal with. And right. it does help. It's not just for a certain group. It's not just for, rich people or crazy people. It helps. It works. Just like, you go to a doctor and you go to a nurse, for the physical, you go to a tax preparer for your taxes, for your emotional, and social situations. There are professionals that can help you. So I wasn't even planning on going that route, but like, what are your thoughts about us accepting and taking advantage of that in our community, and how you would like to help that.
Hmm. This, as you mentioned, the stigma is real, and it is still very much out there. Um, Things are changing, but it is slow. It is very slow because, as you mentioned, people think, if I'm seeking, excuse me, if I'm seeking therapy, I must be crazy or something must be wrong. And this is, therapy doesn't have to be just when something is wrong. Kind of
Mm,
what you alluded to is it can be a check-in. It can be it is a safe place to be like, okay, this is what I'm going through. I want to examine it to make sure I'm, handling it the right way or the way that I want to. And if like you said, do I want to try something different? Do I not? Let's move forward. But the benefit, and here's one of the biggest things, benefits I think of therapy that most people may not consider is where else are you going to be able to talk to someone for 45, 50 minutes and it's all about you? And this other person is not sitting there going, I want to talk. What about me? What about my, sometimes we can make it about us and then the other person feels some kind of way. Um, but here's an environment where you don't have to worry about presenting as a certain way. You
mm,
don't have to worry about, how is this person going to, what are they going to think about me? Are they going to think less than, or, of me? Um, that I just want to, I just want to talk this out. I just want to just, bleh, I love what I say,
right.
bleh, get it out. And so this environment of safety,
Yeah. That you can just
when,
dump, you can
yes,
unload. And what I tell people all the time is, you don't have to worry about you're burdening this person. And absolutely, we pray as Christians. You
mhm,
talk to God, you see guidance from your word. You talk to your friends and family and get their,
mhm,
insight, and they listen. But at the same time, they you look at them a certain way and they look at you a certain way, and there's some things you may not want to share with them, or you share it with them and they have their perspective, which is what their perspective is. But there's some things you don't might not want to share, or you don't want to bug them all the time and just be bending their ear all the time about stuff. Or they may not be available. They got their lives and they're doing things. But with the counselor, it's like, hey, I need to talk. Get on the schedule, and you don't have to worry about, oh, well, they're not going to look at me the same way that they did before, or I can't talk to them about this because this is their friend or their husband, or what. You don't have to
right,
worry about all that. They don't know. They're not involved in your personal life. They don't know you outside of this relationship. You don't have to worry about something getting back to somebody else. None of that.
mhm,
None of that.
right,
And I thank God that you did work with Christian Works to get that counseling that available in our congregation, because I took advantage of that as well. And my kids and I went through the Divorce Works program, and that was, oh my gosh, that was so good and so helpful. And I actually got one of the other sisters, my friends, to go. I was like, hey, you can enroll. We just did one. It's good. You ought to do it. And she got into it, and we actually got closer after that. But we went through that. They have a child component and an adult component, and we went through this book, and it was like it was bringing out all of this stuff that I didn't even like realize I was dealing with, or that was back in the subconscious. It was like, oh, okay, that's what that is. Oh, I never thought about that. And it's like when you get the things out in the open, it makes everything better. And I feel like another thing that people may misunderstand, and you kind of alluded to, like you said, it's not your job to fix people. And I think
right,
maybe sometimes we have this perception, and even with myself, I have to deal with it because I stopped. I have seen an individual counselor, and then I kind of took a break for monetary and time reasons. But then I was like, I was thinking about going back, but then I was like, well, I don't want to. It's kind of like you're like, oh, well, I don't want them trying to tell me this or this. but they're gonna tell me I'm doing something wrong, or they're gonna tell me I need to do this or need to do that. But that's not really not the point of it. So like, can you kind of address that as far as like somebody think, oh, well, they're just gonna tell me this or tell me that or judge me? What would you say about that? And how do you know when you have a okay, for the last few minutes, let's talk about how do you know when you have a good counselor? What should somebody look for if they're like, okay, I'm going to try this? Yeah, let's just go there. Yeah, say, okay, I'm going to try this. So how do they know that they have a good one? How do they find one? What's that like?
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's a good question. One of the misconceptions that people have about therapy is that they have, like, when they go, like, they have no control.
Mm.
That I have to do what they're going to tell me what to do. I have to do it. I have to follow their lead. I just kind of like give up so much agency in this process.
Mm.
And it's really the opposite. When you go to therapy, you have a lot of control. You have a lot of controlling the direction of therapy. So, first and foremost, in order for therapy to be effective, um, you have to feel comfortable with your therapist. If you go and, something about them just does not click, don't go back. Find another therapist. It does not mean therapy doesn't work. It means this therapist is not right for you. And thankfully, there are a whole bunch of us out here.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough, by that same token, not enough, but there's a lot to choose from.
Right.
So if that you're not clicking with that one person, find another one. You can say that, you can do that. At the end, like for me, at the end of my first session, I tell clients up front, if we're not clicking, if I'm not clicking, that's okay. We don't have to schedule. I can give you referrals. You can continue looking, because the most important thing is for you to get the help that you're seeking. And you cannot do that with somebody that you're not clicking with.
Exactly.
So that is going to be the first one. The second one is you want to have, so that involves this level of comfort, but you also want to be with somebody who is going to stretch you.
Mm. Okay.
And so you don't want somebody who's going to be, just like, oh, everything you're doing is great. You're wonderful. Yeah, your own personal cheerleader, because that's not what therapy is about. I mean, we have friends who can do that. We have parents maybe, or family members that can do that. A therapist is going to be like, okay, this is what this looks like. What is it actually? They're going to say, what you want to change? What is it that you want to examine? Let's look at this. Have you thought about that? What's wrong with, getting you to think through this process and come to an answer. I always like to say that works for you, but then also takes into account maybe things that you don't consider as you're making these choices.
Mm.
And so it's about growth. And growth is not one speed. Clients who take that meandering path like I do in my life. And so it may look really, really slow. But I look at, if a client shows up week after week, that's part of the work.
Mm.
That is something, they may be taking smaller steps. And then you have clients who are like, okay, this is what I want, this is what I need, and they go. So you want that comfort, you want that click, that, I won't say likability, but just comfort with them. And then it's important to be aware of your own mindset. If you're completely shut down about the process, then you're not looking for a therapist anyway.
Mm.
But if you have some willingness to do the work. And
Right.
Here's the other part. The work is not once a week when you're in front of your therapist.
All right. Come on now.
That is not the work.
Come on.
That is not the work.
What do you mean?
The work you meet with your therapist to either process what you've done or what's happened since the last appointment, or to bring in, this is what I've been thinking about. Let's talk about this. But it is that time in between your appointments where the work is done. Are you thinking about things? Are you becoming more aware? Are you, I like the word processing, but I mean, are you not even necessarily right off doing things, but even just, it starts with changing the way we think.
Yes.
Therapy, from my approach, one of my biggest approaches is increasing our awareness. Because if we don't know something is wrong, then what are we fixing?
Right.
So I always I always start with awareness. Think about, when you catch yourself thinking this way, or when you catch yourself doing this, or when you notice this. So increasing that awareness so that you can see what changes you want to make.
Excellent. Thank you. I think you answered that very, very well. Thank you so much. So hopefully that will help some of our listeners and viewers feel more comfortable about the idea of seeking therapy and counseling if you have not already. Definitely, definitely. Please consider it. Please consider it. So you have your own practice and you've been going solo for, is it 5 years now?
It's been about that long. And I've actually recently, in the last year, have added another therapist to our practice.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
We are growing, with the pandemic. It's been difficult. People are struggling, isolation, dealing with concerns about, COVID, the pandemic, being sick, losing loved ones, losing our old way of being, our old normal. That is difficult. That has been challenging. That continues to be challenging for all of us on different levels. So this, so that has brought in more people seeking help. And so I've, like I said, in the last year, I've added another therapist. And this year I hope to add another one because the need is great.
Amen. Amen. So, okay, we're going to give her a shout out. What's her name?
Her name is Patricia McGrew. And you can find her on on my website, which is www.newpathwaystx.com. You will read about her bio. You will see my bio. Look at this. You can even schedule on my website.
Yes.
How easy is
that? Perfect. Yeah. So at your convenience, at any time of night, when you are just like, just worried about what just go to the website, New Pathways, and go ahead and book so you can see if you connect. All right. So as a business owner, what is your biggest challenge being your own boss? And how do you deal with that? I see the wheels are turning.
I will say, the biggest challenge in being my own business owner is finding time for myself. Prior to the pandemic, I still have an office, but, I went to my office, like going to work. I went to my office, I did my work, on my drive home, it was like, okay, let me do this. And, so there was an easier separation between the two. It was still a challenge because once I got home, I still had to do work things. But at least there was that physical difference between the two. Since the pandemic, I see clients virtually, so I've been home, and it is very easy to look up, and I'm doing 12-hour days, and not that I'm seeing clients for 12 hours. No,
let's clarify that.
Yes, let's clarify. clarify that.
I want to book Monica at 10 p.m.
Right. No. But with all the things that it takes to keep a business going, it is very easy to, I find myself, right here in front of my computer, after I click off my last client, I'm like, oh, I got this paperwork. Oh, I got this. Oh, I need to check on this, and spend another couple of hours either before or after, either before my first session or after, and then on the weekends. And it's just this whole, you feel like you're working. But the other part of that is most of it is enjoyable. It's like, oh, I do want to do that. I do want to create this, or I do want to research that, or I do, some of it isn't, because I'm looking at this paperwork right here that needs to be done, and I'm like, I'm behind. Some of it isn't, but then over here, there's a lot of stuff that's fun that I really want to do.
Yeah.
It's finding that balance.
It's that thing of do something you love and you never work a day in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. And Monica also has a wonderful Instagram. Let's see. Instagram is at new_pathways_counseling. And you posted, I think this was yesterday. I let go of worries that drain my energy. And it says, anxiety can drain you of your energy and vitality. The constant worrying and fear can be exhausting. Your body needs you to help it find small ways to relieve stress so it can recover and regain its normal energy levels. So today, pledge to let go of worries that drain your energy. So, and for just a practical thing here at the end, what do people need to know about stress and energy, physical, how all of that affects their day?
I think one thing to remember is that our mental health, stress, anxiety, impacts us physically. So when we are stressed, we are, as I said, we're going to feel more tired. We're going to feel, tense. We're going to, our body releases all of these, don't give me cortisone. I think it's cortisone.
I think it is the chemicals.
Chemicals. Thank you. That's the word. That are trying to combat it, but so remembering that our mental health affects us physically. So that connection between the two. And so how to deal with stress, how to deal with anxiety. One to become aware that you're feeling anxious. So that means slowing down and asking ourselves, what's going on? Why am I, eating all the time? Or why am I overly tired and there's really not a whole lot going on? Or why am I cranky? Or why, asking yourself, what is going on? And then deliberately trying to, or intentionally trying to relax ourselves. So one of the easiest ones that is so effective and it's so easy to do is just to take a moment, take a couple of minutes and do some deep breathing. And this is this intentional breathing where you're, I call it a full belly breath.
Yeah, I've heard
because
of
a lot we breathe right here, very shallow. But if we sit and just like,
that's relaxing. Just doing it once is different.
Yes.
It takes more time, and there's just something about that feeling of and letting it go out.
Right. Yeah. And I do that so often. I'm like, okay, especially when I'm facing something stressful, or it'd be like, okay, let me, because I hold tension in my neck. So I rotate my neck, take a deep breath. That gives me that little bit of space that kind of clears my mind. And then let's go ahead. What do I need to do?
Yes, I have learned to use the breath sometimes before I respond to my children.
Yes, that is a good time.
Because I will say, I know that there's times when it's just me, and I'll tell them something like, okay, I'm tired, and so I'm just responding a little bit more than I need to. I'm being cranky. Yes, you should have put the dishes away, but I didn't have to go out there, so I'm sorry. I'm but realizing when that rises up, and I feel like, no, 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 no. Wait, okay.
Yes.
I need you to.
Exactly. Right.
So yeah, all right, so we got your, so just one more time, let us know how we can get in touch with you, how we can find you.
Okay. All right. So the easiest way is going to be at my website. Again, www.newpathwaystx.com. And then you can follow me on Instagram, new underscore, I mean, I think you can even put in just New Pathways Counseling, and it'll pull up. And then you can also follow us on Facebook at New Pathways. I think, yeah, sorry, newpathwaystx.com. Yes.
Something like that. Search New Pathways.
There you go. Trying to be kind of consistent. But yes, so yeah, so you can follow us on all of those. And again, as I mentioned, you can schedule. We also offer a 15-minute consultation. So if you're not sure about the process, or if you have some specific questions, either for me or for you get 15 minutes to ask your questions, get a little bit more information about us, and the way we do therapy.
Oh, it glitched right when you were saying get a little bit. Okay, so just do the 15-minute consultation thing again, because I want to make sure that they hear that.
Okay. So you also have the opportunity we offer a 15-minute consultation. You can schedule that on our website. That gives you an opportunity to ask any questions you have regarding therapy in general, or even about us and the way that we do therapy.
Great.
So get a little information before scheduling.
Sounds good. Well, Monica, thank you so much for taking time to sit with me and talk to my audience today. This has been wonderful. I've gotten a lot out of it, learned a few things, and I think you really dropped some gems that people can actually use in their everyday lives. So I really, really appreciate it, and you have to come back. You have to.
Okay.
So everybody, thanks for joining me. This is Michelle Wright of 99 Ways to Win. And until next time, keep seeking your success.